Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Elegant AOV's guide to switching from SC2 to Broodwar. This is the video which I believe I now should have done first, and I hold my hands up and say that I now know my mistakes. So this video is a basic introduction to switching over to Broodwar, and it's just kind of a general kind of video about a couple of things you can expect and how you're going to find the immediate experience of trying to learn how to play this wonderful game. I am Elegant AOV and I am an aspiring Protoss player. I have to do a wee little bit of a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. I am not quite as good as Day 9 at presenting myself and stuff, so I do occasionally have to look over at my notes. And this is what it looked like when I look at my notes. And this is what it looks like when I look at myself. So just to clarify, I will be doing that occasionally because I'm not entirely comfortable with the way I look on camera. And I am not entirely comfortable without reading from my notes every now and then, so you're just going to have to kind of put up with me for doing that a little bit. But I will try to do the absolute best that I can. If you're watching this video, then you are wanting to pick up StarCraft Broodwar. Well done, I applaud this decision. It's a very wise and a very brave decision as well. This is the most complex, the most mentally demanding, the most physically demanding game you can possibly play in video game terms anyway. And you are preparing to take your first steps into a very, very difficult world. I hope that this second kind of first episode thing will help you to take your first couple of wee little steps into the difficult game of StarCraft Broodwar. So let's have a look at the first thing to talk about. Glance over at my notes. This is a game of 10 or so years, actually more than 10 years of strategic development. So this is an extremely difficult game. That is the first thing you will notice as soon as you begin to play. This game is professionally played, of course, and has been for some time in Korea especially. This is not something you can pick up overnight or without a good deal of effort invested into it. Just to give you a kind of flavour of what kind of difficulty you can expect, there are people who have been playing this game since quite near to its release for a full-time job, and that means, to these people, it means like 10 hours a day, possibly more. They practice insanely hard, and so to expect the same thing of yourself from the start would be ridiculous. I have a wee little anecdote. My older brother, who is Poetic AOV, was playing a game recently on IC Cup. He was playing against someone who's pretty noob, and that's not condescending, it's just the fact that he was pretty noob. And at the end of the game, obviously Poetic won quite comprehensively, and he said, "Would you like to look over the replay? Would you like me to tell you a bit about how the game went?" And the guy came back to him and said, "What's the point in playing if I have to study it? That's boring." And this made me very sad for a good number of reasons, but this guy came in with completely the wrong expectations of what Broodwar was going to be, and as such he probably didn't last very long. You have to consider the man hours that have been spent playing this game. I would absolutely put money on it that combined it is way, way more than one person's lifetime's worth. So it's ridiculous to expect yourself to come in and to be able to pick all that stuff up anyway soon, or to be able to figure all that stuff out for yourself. So that's where study really comes in extremely useful. I think a lot of people can be scared off by the concept of study, but it's very important to know that study does not have to be boring, study does not have to be dry or dull. It can be something that you can really enjoy. It doesn't even have to be less interesting than playing a game itself, because it makes the whole thing much more rewarding. There is nothing worse than wasted time. You do not want to be wasting your time while you're playing this game, and study really helps make all of your time effective. So how does this affect us StarCraft 2 players, you may ask? Well, I think in StarCraft 2 there's a lot more of a culture of being spoon-fed. You have a lot more media coming out on how to play the game. You have a lot more commentaries and such with focus on learning. And so while this is pretty cool, there's not much focus on self-driven learning. And so that's going to have to be something you learn pretty much the hard way in Broodwar. But you can really enjoy that, and it can be such good fun. And I really actually recommend Broodwar for that reason. As I'm sure you're already aware, studying Broodwar can take all kinds of different forms. You're probably already familiar with these from the way you've played SC2 or the way you've studied SC2. Of course, you may be a complete noob coming in from this, and that's fine too. I'm going to go over a few of the practice techniques you can use. I'm going to have to look at my notes again here. You can take techniques and build orders from professional games, for which I would recommend the Nevake channel. That's Nevake on YouTube. That channel is the official Team Liquid database of pretty much every professional Korean StarCraft Broodwar game that has been played ever. And these guys are ridiculous. I mean, they are by far the best players that you can get in the world. So there's quite a lot you can learn from that. You can also watch commentaries of top foreigner games, of which I am a proud member of the community. You can study replays, which you can get from IC Cup or Team Liquid. If you scroll down to the bottom of Team Liquid on the left hand side of the StarCraft Broodwar section, you will find a very, very healthy number of replays for your personal browsing. You can find tutorials, hello, you can play practice games with friends, or you can even mass ladder. So you're never short of options or opportunities for improvement. You never need to feel stuck or stagnant. You're never going to be without fresh ways to improve. It's very easy to try and replace actual genuine study with mass gaming, mass laddering against people you don't know, and that'll end up in spending a very long time playing a very high volume of games with relatively little reward. So try not to get sucked into that trap, because it'll make the whole thing really pretty unrewarding for you. The best place to start playing, that would be, and some people are going to really hate me for saying this, but the best place to start playing would be the IC Cup server. There is a very clear ranking system for a start on IC Cup. If you jump straight onto a Korean server, you're going to be instantly bombarded with lots of confusing stuff. You won't have the faintest idea what's going on. There'll be lots of weird text in question marks and exclamation marks, and you won't be able to fathom a thing. Not to mention the fact that when you do finally get a game, you will get your ass handed to you on a plate, because these guys are so incredibly good compared to many of the rest of us. So on IC Cup, you jump straight on, and very quickly you'll be able to find somebody of your skill level. The ranking system goes all the way from E, which is pretty much where you're going to start, all the way up to Olympic level. Don't expect to be getting there within the next 30 years or so. That is a ridiculously difficult level to attain. Only a few players have ever got it in history, I think, and they were pretty prominent Korean professionals, so really don't go in expecting too much for yourself in the ranking area. It goes all the way down to 1 point, obviously, and because of the nature of the scoring system, it'll be pretty fast, I would say, to find your level. And like I've said before, really don't expect anything fantastic out of yourself from the beginning. You would be doing very well to stay stable at D- rather than going all the way to E right from the very beginning. There's plenty of detail available on all the ranking systems and how to connect to the server on the IC Cup website, which should be pretty easy for you to find. The thing about Broodwar servers is pretty much people only play competitively, at least, on private servers. There is still Battle.net servers, but they're not in the same way as in StarCraft 2, where you can only play on Battle.net. There is a very strong community of private servers in Broodwar, where people have moulded the ranking system and stuff to suit them. So don't expect to be going on Battle.net all the time. It can be an okay place to start. You have to be very wary of hackers and various other people of extremely low skill who have probably never even heard of the Korean professional scene. So private servers are a best place to start and to stay. Right, so once you get onto one of these fantastic servers, you are going to be hit in the face with a game of Broodwar. If you can find one, which I'm sure you can, you can figure it out once you get there. This game has a ridiculously steep learning curve, even at the low levels, but the good news is the people at the low levels, even if they seem incredibly unbeatable at first and you just don't know how you're going to come up with anything to take them down, it's very important to remember, they are only a little bit ahead of you. They are never more than a few days really hard playing away from you. So if you are starting off as a low D- player and you play against another mid D- player, and he seems incredible, right? This guy seems unbeatable. I can assure you his play will be riddled with very obvious errors, which will not only be apparent to you when you look over the replay properly, but also in a few days' time, if you're practicing with correct techniques and correct build orders, you will be able to beat him absolutely hands down, no problem. In order to achieve this first little bit of progress, you are going to need a build order. What people will tell you is to go straight to Liquipedia, and they are right. it only serves a certain purpose coming on a forum. It's best to come on a forum and ask for advice when you're already a little way along, which is why kind of blanket tutorials such as this really, really help, because they can get you through those first couple of awkward steps without having to ask everybody, and then the forum just gets flooded with millions of questions. You're probably already familiar with Liquipedia from StarCraft 2. I believe there's a StarCraft 2 section. Not that I have ever particularly looked for it, but yeah, you should be pretty familiar with the format of that as well. It's all extremely nicely laid out, and there's some very good general strategy guides and all the build orders you could ever need, at least at the beginning. With each rank comes more players who will beat you, and they will beat you very soundly. So you'll break out of D+ finally, you'll manage to get yourself all the way up to that fantastic rank of D. And then very quickly you'll find that you have become prey for players who suddenly seem an awful lot stronger than you and are very happy to beat you hands down. But don't be discouraged by this, because this is the way it goes. The thing about a loss is you've got to not see it as this massive disappointment and this failure in your own skill, because there will always be players who can beat you. Even the very best players in the world are still losing games. So rather than thinking of each loss as an individual failure, you really have to view each one as a learning experience. Okay, so I have a vague idea what you might be thinking at this stage. You might be thinking, Mr. Elegant, why are you telling us all this? We already know all this from StarCraft 2. No, you don't already know all this from StarCraft 2, because the thing you have to remember is that in this game there is no longer any Bronze League. There are no longer those safe, very, very low levels of play. You can no longer log on knowing nothing, get knocked down into the lower league, and then play just for fun as a dick around without any study and win games. That really will not happen, so it's going to take a little bit more work right from square one, but I really want to make sure that people are aware of this and that they know that it is good fun right from the very beginning as well. It doesn't have to be a horrible, daunting task. It can be really, really enjoyable right from the start, as long as you know what to expect. So each time you lose a game, you should be getting a little bit closer to the next win, and then you should be expecting to lose again soon afterwards to a whole fresh set of errors. But you need to make that commitment to yourself after each loss and each problem you've identified to work on it in the next sequence of games, and to make sure that you go into your next practice session, or come out of it rather, better on that particular aspect of your game than you were when you went in, and you'll find that very rewarding. Now, I do realise I've made this all sound a bit terrifying and daunting, but I've missed out a very key aspect so far. One of the key aspects, one of the absolute most important factors in becoming a good Brood War player is you must want to play. If you do not want to play Brood War and you do not want to learn about it, you will pretty much crash and burn really, really quickly if you don't have some commitment. I don't mean a huge level of commitment. If you just think, I want to be a D+ player, you have to have that commitment in order just to have any motivation in this game, because it is a very steep learning curve, and so you have to want to play, and you have to play with enjoyment. You have to, how can I say it, you have to relish the challenge of each loss, and you have to enjoy when you win, because when you win, you know that you did it under your own steam. You were in a game against that guy who you wouldn't have beaten a week ago, and now you have beaten him, and that is incredibly rewarding because you know that you did it and you got yourself there. Now, the same goes all round for enjoyment. I mean, if you're watching a pro match or an amateur match, then it's one thing to try and learn all you can from it, and by all means that's very valuable, and you can pick up loads and loads of great pieces of information. But remember to try and switch off your analytical brain once in a while. Enjoy the flow of the game, enjoy all the nuances, enjoy every little aspect of the clever plays these guys are doing, and just really try and love the game, because it is really, really awesome, and it's a really incredible spectator sport as well. You're going to be pretty much, how can I say, you're going to be pretty much overawed by the level of multitasking, the level of macro, the sheer level of ability that these guys display in every single match. I can guarantee that once you've learned a little bit about how tough and how rewarding it is to play this game, then you will not be disappointed by a professional match. You will just, your jaw will drop to the floor. You'll be really quite amazed when you kind of understand a bit more about what these players are actually doing in each individual game. Alongside the fact that this is really enjoyable, it's also such a great drive to personal improvement. If I see a game that I really enjoyed, a professional Korean game or whatever, and it's got a bit of a quirky new Protoss strategy in it, then I am going to go straight away, I'm going to log on, and I'm going to try and play that game for myself, because there's nothing more motivating than seeing something performed so exceptionally well. This also has the added benefit that I have an instant replay whenever I want of a strategy which came fresh out of a pro game and was fresh in my mind at the time, which I can then develop and create into a more refined play in the same direction as the professional created it, or in a completely different direction of my own, which can also be really, really cool.